This isn't a fashion mishap, this is a luxury house declaring war. And the target is a duchess who allegedly treated couture like a costume closet with a return policy. Because today, the whispers exploded into a lawsuit, and the numbers alone are enough to make Beverly Hills gasp. $8 million. Fraud. Breach of contract. 47 dresses. And according to what's now sitting in a legal filing, Chanel didn't just file papers, they brought receipts, footage, lab reports, and a timeline so detailed it reads like a crime dossier. For years, the narrative was familiar, misunderstood, mistreated, targeted. But this time, the opponent isn't tabloids or palace insiders. This time, it's a fashion house that does not blink, does not bend, and does not forgive when its name is used without permission. According to the filing, this wasn't one bad return. It wasn't a sizing issue. It wasn't buyer's remorse. It was a system. Over an 18-month period, 47 couture and ready-to-wear pieces were allegedly bought, worn to high-profile moments, then quietly returned, sometimes the very next day, with claims they were unworn, defective, or unsuitable. But Chanel says the truth was hanging in plain sight. They allege the clothes were worn to lunches, dinners, galas, photo ops, even filmed appearances. Worn just long enough for the cameras to flash, long enough for the image to circulate, long enough to reinforce the illusion of endless luxury. Then boxed up, returned, money refunded. And here's where it gets darker. Chanel claims the tags didn't simply fall off. They allege deliberate tag manipulation, removed, hidden, taped, and then reattached with precision. Not sloppy, not accidental, surgical. The kind of care that suggests practice, the kind of care that suggests intent. This is what the retail world calls wardrobing. But this wasn't a mall shopper returning a blazer after a wedding. This was allegedly couture treated like a rental library without paying the rental fee. And Chanel didn't act fast. That's the part that should terrify anyone watching this unfold. They watched, they logged, they tracked, item by item, date by date, event by event. 47 isn't a guess, it's a count. That number alone tells you this file wasn't built in a week. It was built patiently, while the hole got deeper and the evidence got heavier. One jacket worn to a public lunch returned the next day for itchy lining. One gown worn to a private dinner returned 48 hours later for wrong shade. One luxury set worn on camera returned because it didn't photograph well. These aren't excuses, they're alibis. And Chanel says they stopped believing them a long time ago. Why $8 million when the clothes themselves add up to far less? Because this case isn't about fabric, it's about fraud. Chanel argues that wearing their designs publicly and returning them afterward created commercial value for the wearer while costing the brand exclusivity. Couture isn't just clothing, it's intellectual property, it's scarcity, it's trust. Once worn, it's contaminated. Once photographed, it's devalued. And then there's the condition of the returns. According to the filing, several items came back soiled. Makeup residue, perfume traces, creases consistent with hours of wear. Chanel claims they didn't just eyeball this, they tested it. Fibers examined, substances identified, reports filed. This is luxury at the forensic level. And Chanel isn't just suing one person. The lawsuit names unnamed assistants and stylists, the hands that walked into boutiques, swiped cards, smiled at sales associates, and explained why the clothes didn't work out. Chanel is going after the enablers, the messengers, the people who physically made the returns. And that opens the door to something far more dangerous than a civil dispute. Because if even one of those assistants decides to talk, to say, I was told to return it after it was worn, this stops being about refunds and starts being about coordination, premeditation, conspiracy. The fashion industry has whispered about this for years. Clothes coming back late, clothes coming back scented, clothes coming back different. But nobody wanted to be the first to say it out loud. Nobody wanted the backlash. Nobody wanted the accusation. Chanel didn't care. And once they filed, the dam broke. Now other houses are reportedly checking their own records. Dior, Valentino, Gucci, quietly asking the same question, did this happen to us too? Because if Chanel's timeline is accurate, this wasn't an isolated habit, it was a business model. Buy, wear, return, repeat. The trick of influencers pretending they own wardrobes they can't afford. Only this time the influencer had a title. And that's what makes this lawsuit radioactive. It reframes everything. The image, the appearances, the supposed wealth. It paints a picture not of abundance but of desperation, of someone trying to look untouchable while cutting corners behind the scenes. Chanel's legal team isn't playing defense. They're going for exposure. They want a trial. They want garments displayed. They want stains pointed out under courtroom lights. They want dates matched with photographs. They want footage played. And yes, footage exists. The filing references security video from flagship boutiques, returns logged, interactions recorded, voices raised, refusals challenged. Chanel didn't just accept returns, they archived them, and one recorded confrontation allegedly changed everything. A returned piece refused, a voice insisting, pressure applied, threats implied. That's when Chanel stopped absorbing losses and started building a case. And as this story breaks, the fallout is already spreading. Talent agencies scrambling, brand deals evaporating, invitations quietly disappearing, because in fashion, reputation is currency. And once a house like Chanel labels you a liability, doors don't just close, they lock. This is only the beginning, because if 47 pieces were allegedly returned, that means 47 moments were staged, 47 images were sold, 47 times the illusion held until it didn't. And the most dangerous thing about this lawsuit, Chanel says they can prove intent. According to the lawsuit, Chanel didn't just rely on boutique cameras. They went hunting for corroboration, and they allegedly found it in the most unexpected place: raw, unreleased footage from the Sussex Netflix production. Here's the nightmare scenario. When reality productions film, they don't capture minutes, they capture hundreds of hours. Fittings, prep, background chatter, moments no one expects to ever see daylight. Chanel's legal team reportedly subpoenaed that raw material, believing the scheme didn't just happen in stores, but at home. And what they claim to have uncovered is devastating. A fitting scene, a Chanel gown, stylists adjusting seams, cameras rolling, and in the background, a casual conversation about hiding the tag. Not removing it permanently, not damaging it, hiding it, folding it into the lining, securing it with medical tape so it wouldn't show in photos. Why? So it could be returned the next morning. One voice allegedly jokes, "Don't spill anything," or "We own it." Another responds, "We don't own it." That sentence alone changes everything, because it proves intent before the garment was ever worn. It destroys any claim of misunderstanding. It shows the purchase was never meant to be permanent. It wasn't fashion, it was logistics. Chanel doesn't call that styling, they call it fraud. And then comes the science. Luxury houses don't resell returns blindly. High-value items go through inspection, microscopic, chemical, forensic. According to the filing, one silk blouse returned as unworn contained traces of bronzer embedded deep in the fibers, not surface level, embedded, along with perfume residue matching a scent publicly associated with the wearer. Skin cells, hair fragments, sweat markers. Chanel preserved it all. This isn't retail anymore. This is CSI Rodeo Drive. And Chanel didn't stop there. They allege DNA-level biological markers were found on multiple garments. They're prepared to testify that the returned items were worn, not briefly, not accidentally, but long enough for the body to leave a signature. 47 times. And that number matters, because mistakes happen once, maybe twice. 47 is not an accident. It's a system. But the most explosive allegation doesn't involve fashion, it involves money. According to the lawsuit, many of these purchases were initially charged to cards linked to production entities, logged as wardrobe expenses, business deductions, standard Hollywood accounting until the refunds came through. The claim is simple and terrifying. The money was refunded, but the deductions weren't reversed, which means the wardrobe wasn't just worn for free, it may have generated tax benefits. Cash back plus write-offs. Double dipping. That's no longer a civil dispute between a customer and a brand. That's the kind of allegation that wakes up federal auditors. And this is where another figure enters the frame, because several refunds were processed to cards in Prince Harry's name. His cards, his statements, his financial footprint. If he knew, he's exposed. If he didn't know, his name is still on the paper trail. Either way, the optics are catastrophic. A king's son tied to a couture refund scheme. And then comes item 47, the dress that allegedly broke the silence. A gold gown, high-profile gala, flashbulbs everywhere. The look that screamed wealth and power returned the next morning, destroyed. According to Chanel's internal report, the hem was torn, consistent with force, not fabric failure. Worse, the lining was stained with oily residue consistent with body makeup or self-tanner. The boutique refused the return. That's when everything escalated. The lawsuit alleges threats, pressure, accusations implied, refund demanded, replacement credit insisted upon. When Chanel sent the gown to Paris for analysis, the lab reportedly concluded the fabric was intact. The damage was caused by wear. Claim denied. And instead of backing down, Chanel opened the vault. They reviewed every prior return, every assistant interaction, every security log, every anomaly they'd ignored out of courtesy. And what they saw, according to the filing, was a pattern too obvious to excuse. Then comes the recording. During the confrontation over the gold gown, a store manager allegedly recorded the exchange. Not a Chanel system, a personal device. That audio is now Exhibit 48. According to the transcript, a voice identified as the Duchess berates staff, dismisses the damage, demands accommodation, and invokes power. The most chilling line, "I will destroy this store." That's not customer frustration. That's coercion. Chanel is using that recording to justify punitive damages, not to recover money, but to punish behavior, to protect staff, to send a message. And the industry heard it loud and clear. Stylists began stepping away, quietly, rapidly. No one wants to be subpoenaed. No one wants to explain tag guns and return runs under oath. Yes, tag guns. The lawsuit alleges a privately purchased tag gun was used to reattach Chanel labels after wear. Chanel noticed because the plastic fasteners didn't match factory specs. A microscopic difference, the kind only luxury houses would notice. That tiny piece of plastic unraveled everything. And then came the whistleblower. A former wardrobe assistant, reportedly terminated, allegedly approached investigators, provided dates, lists, instructions, confirmed the routine, confirmed who gave the orders. And as if that weren't enough, a former close friend, an A-list actress with her own luxury contracts, has reportedly cooperated. Sworn deposition, direct witness. The words that obliterate plausible deniability, it's only cheating if you get caught. If that testimony reaches a jury, the defense collapses. The fallout is already visible. Fashion houses sharing data. Internal audits launched. Invitations rescinded. Doors closed. A quiet blacklist circulating through Paris and Milan. No loans, no pulls, no exceptions. Even the Met Gala is reportedly off the table, not delayed, not reconsidered, but closed permanently. Because fashion forgives many things. It does not forgive being used. Chanel isn't looking to settle quietly. They don't want hush money. They want a precedent, a public reckoning, a judgment that says titles don't override trust. And the final humiliation? Chanel is seeking the right to inspect the wardrobe itself, to inventory what's actually owned and what may have been worn and returned so many times it never belonged to anyone at all. Imagine that image. Closets opened, tags checked, receipts examined, couture reduced to evidence. This is how reputations end in luxury circles, not with scandal, but with classification. From icon to liability, from ambassador to warning label. 47 dresses didn't just come back stained. They came back with a story attached, and now that story belongs to the court. And once Chanel speaks, fashion listens. Fashion listens. Fashion listens.